How do you scale a private dental practice into a nationally recognized, patient-first powerhouse without losing sight of what matters most? Dr. Roger Pecina didn't copy a model, he redefined what a dental practice could be, built on trust, leadership, and patient-friendly dentistry. Now, with his son, Dr. Parker Pecina, he's sharing the blueprint. This is All on 32, where practice ownership meets purpose.
Hi, welcome back again to our All on 32 podcast. I'm Dr. Roger Pecina.
And I'm Dr. Parker Pecina.
We are here today to talk about the business of dentistry.
Yep.
That would have been a taboo term used 20 or 25 or 30 years ago because dentists always looked at it as a profession and not a business. That's why a lot of dentists got into trouble because they really couldn't wrap their head around the fact that it was really a business. Dentistry became our service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you look at the way it is today, the way the schools prepare you for dentistry, they do not prepare you for the business of dentistry. I think we might have taken like a single class on insurance, PPOs, all of these things that pertain to the non-clinical aspects of the dental practice. And you don't know if that's by design or not, but like you said, we'll kind of go through, what it was when you were starting out and where it's at now, and how do you bridge that gap between being a business owner and a dentist?
I think for new dentists, it's really obvious that no one wants to go in and start their own practice. They have a lot of debt coming out of school. The thought of borrowing more money to start up a dental practice is not a great idea for them. But at the same time, I don't think the confidence is there. The confidence in the skill level as they graduate just doesn't seem to be there.
No, you have to find yourself a mentor. It almost has to fall in your lap in this day and age, I think. Like I said, they don't prepare you for it in school. I was lucky enough to obviously come into a practice that my father's been running for well over 40 years. So I had a mentor in him and other dentists that have been there for quite some time. So I've gotten to see what it looks like to own a practice, to run a practice, to be a dentist, to be a patient manager and an employee manager. And I've seen it grow tremendously over my lifespan, and also now trying to get my feet wet in not just expanding my dental skills and improving and learning real life dentistry, but also learning how to manage people and employees, especially.
I really think that most graduates are really struggling with just wrapping their mind around clinical skills. Almost everybody admits that, hey, I don't know enough. Mm-hmm. I need to know more. I need to learn more. You have a lot of people going into grad programs. And then when they come out, they get themselves into situations where it's more learning, but the knowledge that they need about what's going on around them, mm-hmm. they don't have time to think about.
No, they don't. And that's something I saw a lot with my classmates. There were, I want to say half of my class went into specialties. And a lot of it, having one-on-one conversations with them was fear of, I'm not prepared for this job yet. I've, some really good friends that went into, AEGD specialties because they just wanted more experience. They didn't think that their clinical experience at our school was enough for them. And obviously it is what you make of it. I felt like it was enough for me, and some people they were afraid, but they also might not have that mentorship waiting for them. That's where I knew, me coming out, I was going to be okay working underneath you and our other doctors. So I knew that I had veteran doctors to fall back on that were going to be there for me. Whereas these other kids that don't have that in their family or friends that can get into a practice where they have that mentorship, it can be a pretty scary thing to jump in and you're just being trusted as the lead doctor in that practice, right. Or you're being treated just as much as a doctor that's been there for 20, 30 years. That'd be a pretty scary thing. So I understand why they might choose to go into, a specialty. But again, you have to, go back to they're coming in as a new dentist at an established practice, and they're probably not going to have any responsibilities as a business manager or an employee manager. But that's, I think, where you bridge the gap between you have corporate dentistry, you have private practice. Even in corporate dentistry, those doctors, they are responsible for their staff, right? They're responsible for their assistants. So how do you instill that in the next generation to get them to want to mentor, their assistants and their staff that they work with when they themselves don't feel adequate in their position? And then try to shift things back to the private practice mindset and get people to start investing and buying practices.
One of the biggest issues you have is that most dentists going into any type of work environment are going into a business where most of the people around them know more than they know.
Mm-hmm.
They've dealt with patients, actual paying customers. They've dealt with a lot of issues and problems. And so when that dentist walks into that office, staff can be very skeptical of, well, what does this person know? Well, they just graduated. But unfortunately, what I see then is the dentist that is new to the practice isn't really interested in their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get away from focusing on a tooth. They don't have any private meetings with staff. They don't talk to the front desk. They don't even know who else works in the office in some cases. They don't know them by name.
Mm-hmm.
They don't greet the staff in the morning. They just come in and start focusing on, well, when's my first patient schedule? What do I need to do on them? So they're not taking advantage of the opportunity to learn from the people that are around them, and therefore bonding with those people to say, hey, look, we can help each other here. I'm here. Tell me what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Help me get through this initial period. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. What am I missing? How can you help me? You have to take advantage of those situations.
You have to step up into that role, and if you are listening to this podcast, you're a new dentist, you're not a business owner, you're not in private practice, and you're wondering whether it's something that you see yourself doing, I think you take exactly what he just said. You step into that role at the practice you are at, whether you're an associate or not, or if it's corporate. Start to play around with the leadership role of being a doctor and leading your staff and leading by example and being there for them. And you can still be inexperienced, but that is where the learning happens. That is where, the fear of failure will handicap you. And I think the biggest, in my experience, I came in right out of school and I had a lot to learn. I still have a ton to learn. But for me, I started taking on the role of leading by example and working at the same level as our assistants in our general staff, front desk, our lab, our sterile departments, and talking to them as people and being there for them and helping them out. And also having the morning huddles, the morning meetings, having the confrontation that most people are afraid of, and then also building them back up afterwards and knowing that you're there for them to help them improve their life. And that, thankfully for us, we work in a state that allows expanded function assistance. So we get to really grow people in our practice. And that's a huge opportunity for becoming a leader. And then at that point, again, if you're one of those listeners that's interested in becoming a private practice owner, you're going to start building those characteristics that next thing you know, it just comes, it's just natural. And that is what makes a really good practice manager and a practice owner.
The biggest thing that the staff will say when a new doctor comes into the practice is, oh, they got an ego problem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't deal well with someone that comes in that says, hey, I'm the doctor. This is the way this is going to be.
Right.
Because you're dealing with people that are much more experienced than you are. When you walk into a dental practice, a new position, whatever it may be, you've got to be humble. The more humble you'll be, the more respected you'll be.
Right.
You're not going to just get respect because of who you are. But I think too many times that really gets in the way. And if you want to really work and you look at the business side of things, those relationships that you have where you put yourself on the same playing field as everybody else in the office, and you say, I'm no better than them, I'm no worse than them,
Right.
we're all here to do a job, we all have our specific responsibilities to do, and then execute those responsibilities that fall on your plate, and then support everybody else around you to raise them up. I think you also have to look at it and say, well, what's my goal? What am I trying to do? Am I in this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? I hear so many dentists talk about, well, what am I going to do when I get out? It's like they act like they're in prison or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading all these things about how I can do this to get out of the chair. Well, if you wanted to get out of the chair, then why did you go to dental school in the first place?
Right.
I don't understand. If you want to get out of the chair and you think you can manage other dentists and you not do any dentistry, they're going to walk all over you. And you're going to have a real problem executing that model.
Yeah, they're not going to embrace what it is you're trying to sell either. So I think you touched on two really good things. One is humility. I think gone are the days of people admitting that they're wrong, admitting that they don't know, bring yourself down to the level of your other employees. A lot of doctors do have that ego. And again, I think that this podcast can help motivate you in that you can become whatever you want to become. Now, he is a perfect example of what is possible in this world as a general dentist, not even a specialist, okay? It depends on how much work you want to put in, how hard you want to work for your employees. I think that's the biggest misconception, that once you're an owner or a manager that people work for you, and that is not correct. You are working for your employees. You have to do the job for them. That is how they learn. That is how they respect you. That is how, next thing you know, they will run through that brick wall for you, and that's the kind of team you want to build. Those are reliable people, and they know that you're going to go to bat for them as well, and that is how you build the culture. I think that is the biggest thing that people talk about these days is the culture of a practice, and most small, privately owned dental practices might not have the culture that I think breeds the success that you want. I think it's, it can be a grind for some of these kids. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they stand, but a lot of it is taking that leap of faith. I really believe so.
I think what's really interesting is that if you surveyed all the graduating dentists in last year's class, probably half of them have never had a cavity.
Right.
They've never had any adversity in their lives. Many of them never had a job of any kind. So you're walking into something that's like, this is totally different than anything you've experienced in the past. And it's like, well, how quick can I get past this and get the implants? So I find it very interesting because you're going to be dealing with people that have a lot more issues than you probably have, a lot more sometimes physical issues, emotional issues, financial issues. And, they're all patients. And we have to quit talking about what's a good patient, what's not a good patient. Every person deserves the same consideration of treatment, regardless of what your opinion of them is. So if you just get used to that and just accept the fact that, hey, I'm I walk in the room. I'm here to serve my patient. I'm here to serve my staff. I'm here to give them all the best experience that I can give them. I'm not looking at them trying to get something. But what I do get is I get the emotional reward of people that appreciate what you did for them. And that means more than money all the time.
Yeah. I think, again, you mentioned like you got to be there for the patient, you got to be there for your staff. To be successful in this way, where you are a leader or you're a business owner or private practice, it's a lot of really, really hard work. And I know that a lot of kids in my class would get overwhelmed very easily with the type of schedule that we might run for a single doctor or two doctors and the volume of patients we might see. And I've seen doctors get overwhelmed and flustered. And it's very hard for them when they come out of the room to also now devote themselves to the staff. So it's not a switch that you can turn on and off. You can't walk into a room and just turn it on for a patient, because you have to have that switch on when you're outside of the room talking to your employees. They're all people, like he said. And it does start with understanding that all of your patients are equal, okay? And they're all there for you to help them. So you need to get on their level. You need to connect with them about their problem and start to foster that trustful relationship. And you can do the exact same thing with your employees, but you can't turn it on and off, because your employees, they see that. They're in the room with you with those patients, and they see like, oh, they can really turn it on and talk to this patient, but we're outside of the room and they're very bossy and they're making us, the way they're talking to us, it's not the same that they're talking to a patient. So now we are different. And if they see that difference in you, they might not want to get on board. And that's where you start to lose that culture.
The doctor's going to set the tone for the day, or the doctor should be setting the tone for the day. The way you walk into the building, the way you address everybody, the way you talk to the patients, the amount of energy that you bring. Everybody is going to behave the way you're behaving. This whole thing about, oh, I had a bad day and all this kind of stuff, you can't have a bad day. Those patients aren't paying you to have a bad day. So those types of comments, they're really pointless, because all they are really excuses.
They're excuses.
You have to perform. When you walk into the building, you are putting on a performance every single time. You have to put everything else in back of you. As far as the clinical skills go, I see a tremendous amount of fear. I know in our office, we've got doctors with a lot of experience. They can back the other doctors up if there's a problem or something like that happens. You may not have the opportunity to have another doctor in that practice who's going to help you. So if you're going to practice and you're afraid that you might make a mistake, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes either way. There's things that are going to go bad. So just have the confidence to say, I know what I'm doing. I can get this done. If it doesn't go quite right, I have a way to get out of it. I have a way to fix it. All those kind of things that you need to mentally prepare yourself to say, okay, I am ready to attack the day. I am ready. Just bring it on. Give me whatever you can give me. And at the end of the day, feel good about what you did.
Yeah. I think there's an important thing in taking ownership of you and your issues. And like you said, the fear and making mistakes, taking ownership of those mistakes as well. Make it up to the patient, make it up to your staff, and humble yourself. You have to get rid of that doctor ego. You do have to kill that ego. And that is when the true you will shine. He talks a lot about the way people are outside of the practice in general and how pleasant they can be to talk to. And then when you get them in a practice, they're a completely different person and they're trying to be a doctor. And don't try to be a doctor. You have the piece of paper that says you're a doctor. Go be the person you are outside of the office with your staff and your patients.
Absolutely.
And I think those are all really, really good points in getting started in trying to find yourself in a leadership role, build your confidence, and start to see if it's something that you might be interested in doing and going off on your own or buying into a practice. And there are ways to do it. Those practices are out there. And there's plenty of mentorship out there. You just have to find somebody that's willing to mentor you, and you have to be humble about it, and you have to be accepting of what they're trying to teach you.
Then you have to listen.
You have to listen. Yep.
So that closes out things for today. We appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.